synagogue in Paris. So he wanted to exploit this occasion to the end.
The actual march itself was all exploited into a political play, really, where a lot of presidents and a lot of leaders
we know also
took
the
part.
Palestinian president also announced that he will not attend. But after Netanyahu said is going to Paris to attend the march, Palestinian president announced that he will go too. So there is a kind of conflict between the these two rivals. But generally speaking, let's say that concerning the march itself, yes, it was not several political leaders wanted to exploit this march for political interests for themselves.
And they did.
And they did. But we hope that this march will be reflected in different positive steps in the future. But it is very sorrowful that we saw that the Charlie Hebdo published a new cartoonist about Prophet Muhammad, and this provoked many Muslims in different countries. So we hope that this will stop after this march.
Indeed. Let's go to the Daily Star. Lebanon headline reads, Lebanese police raid prison after bomb attacks. Lebanese security forces stormed a unit of the country's largest prison where militants are detained as authorities search for those responsible for a double suicide attack at the weekend. Security sources said there were no injuries, but they added the police were searching for forbidden items at Building B in the Rumeiyah prison where militants are held. The prison was originally built to hold 1,500 inmates, but now over 3,700 are crammed inside. The prisoners are able to communicate outside with mobile phones, and security sources have said some are still involved in attacks against the state.
So concerning Lebanon, we know that Lebanon is suffering from the repercussions of the Syrian war, Syrian civil war. We see that Islamist powers in Syria now, like Al-Nusra Front, Al-Qaeda, and Daesh, are fighting along the borders between Syria and Lebanon. They have been able to capture some Lebanese soldiers, and at the same time, this Rumeiyah prison includes some of prisoners affiliated with Al-Nusra. So we saw that England suffered in recent days from 2 suicide attacks, and that Al-Nusra wants to release these prisoners from Al-Rumeiyah prison. So I think Lebanon will continue suffering for some time from this, from the Syrian civil war, until we will see what will happen in the future.
In Syria, indeed.
Yes.
Right, let's go to the Washington Post, and the headline reads, Pro-IS hackers seize U.S. CENTCOM social media accounts. U.S. Central Command suspended its Twitter page after a group declaring sympathy for Daesh militants hacked its social media accounts and posted internal documents. In an embarrassing propaganda jab at the American military, a black and white banner with the image of a hooded figure and the words Cyber Caliphate and I love you ISIS replaced Central Command's standard Twitter banner. The hacking of CENTCOM social media accounts came as President Barack Obama was delivering a speech on cybersecurity. The irony of the situation.
Yes, this is very significant for me in two ways. First, we see that Daesh and or ISIS and its affiliates have been focusing on the importance of social media in their campaign against the West. And we see that they have reached a very advanced level in this war, that they have been able to infiltrate the accounts of the Central Command of the American Army. And at the same time, the significance in the second way is that we see that the Obama administration has completely failed in developing a strategy against this extremist group. We saw that none of any Obama administration top officials have attended the march in Paris against terrorism. And we see that the United States, even if it is invited for a meeting on fighting extremism next February, but we see that there was not so much positive response to these invitations. So I see that this new development reflects the failure of the Obama administration, and also sees the importance of the social media in the coming period, We read last week that President Al-Sisi has called the United Nations to stop or to close all social media channels or websites used by these extremist groups. So we hope that the UN and the West will give heed to these calls, because it is very important. But as I said, the Obama administration is very timid about this, or is not sincere about its fight against these extremists.
Indeed.
This is my personal point of view.
Absolutely right. Mr. Gamel, to the Washington Times, and the headline reads, new sanctions Iran nuclear deal, according to the U.S. envoy to the United Nations. U.S. envoy to the UN said that it is still possible to reach a nuclear deal with Iran, but new U.S. congressional sanctions could seriously undermine prospects for an agreement and end up isolating Washington instead of Tehran. The remarks from Ambassador Samantha Power in a speech at the McConnell Center at the University of Louisville. Amongst those attending, the center co-founder, Senator Mitch McConnell, the new U.S. Senate Majority Leader. In her address, Power called for greater cooperation between Republicans and President Obama's Democrats on key foreign policy and security issues, including Iran, Cuba, and the fight against terrorism.
Yes, we see that there is a kind of conflict in the United States now between the Republican Party.
Yes, and the Congress.
The Republicans have been able to sweep the elections and dominate the two houses of the Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate. So we see now there is a conflict between the president and this Republican Party on a number of issues, and Iran, the nuclear powers, the nuclear powers of Iran is on top of these issues, and that this will its impact about reaching a deal with Iran. Of course, the Republicans want more strong sanctions against Iran, and Obama wants to give Iran a chance until they can sign a deal.
Some sort of deal, yeah.
Yes. So I think that this conflict will continue and will affect the Obama's agenda in the coming period, especially in relations with Iran.
Indeed. Let's go to The Guardian. The headline reads, Afghan president names cabinet 3 months after taking power. After weeks of political paralysis, Afghanistan's new president fulfilled what many thought should have been in his first duty. He has formed a government. A long dispute over last year's election was only resolved after the winner, Ashraf Ghani, agreed to share power with his rival, Abdullah in a government of national unity. It took Ghani and his chief executive more than 3 months to complete their first collaborative task. The announcement of 25 new ministers in a low-key ceremony in Kabul brought some relief to Afghans who worried that the government would not be able to function.
After 3 months of
3
elections,
months.
We hope that not happen in Egypt,
all,
of course.
And we also hope that this won't happen in all of the decisions.
Yes.
Taking this much time in such a volatile country.
Yeah, yes, we know that there was some conflict about the results, the final results of the Afghan elections. But after this issue was settled, it was supposed that the Afghans will be able to establish their new government very quickly. But it took a lot of time. So we know that Afghanistan is suffering from certain conditions. There is a lot of terrorism there, but we hope that this will not be, other countries will not be affected by this epidemic. That we want Egypt after parliamentary elections. If a party got a majority, it will be able to form a new government very quickly, not to wait 3 months. This will mean a lot of paralysis, as you said, for the country. So Afghanistan has its own special circumstances.
Do you think that this new step could create a new political horizon for Afghanistan?
We know that Afghanistan is still suffering from Taliban, still suffering from extremism. But we hope that forming a new government and electing a new president will help Afghanistan to be a strong state, not to remain a failed state in the coming future, because this is very important in the international battle against Islamist extremism.
Absolutely. I'm afraid we've run out of time. Mr. Gamal Assam, the Deputy Editor of Al-Ahram Weekly, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much
for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
And ladies and gentlemen, with that, we wrap up this afternoon's edition of The World Today. I'm Angie Meher. Many thanks for joining us.